The 2024 Rugby League season is over, which means we have two options. One, we delve into a pit of despair, depression, and darkness until March. Or two, we start putting together utterly baseless, completely flawed, and downright ridiculous ways of trying to predict what will happen in 2025. With that, I present you Rugby League Live 4, quite possibly the greatest ever video game to have graced our screens, if you ignore every other video game. Way back in 2017, when this game was made, the developers slaved away night after night, crunching the numbers to come up with the perfect algorithm to be able to flawlessly simulate the outcomes of an NRL season with perfect accuracy. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little there for dramatic effect, but the point is, it lets you simulate an entire season and see how it plays out. Now, because I hate myself, with the help of the Rugby League Live community, I've gone through every team in the NRL and filled it up with the updated 2025 rosters. And I've given each player an overall rating based on my own opinion of them. And so today we're going to simulate the entire 2025 season and see where all the teams end up. Who will win the premiership? Who will be the biggest surprise team in the finals? And will the Tigers finally be able to finish somewhere other than last? This all took me like a billion years to set up, literally being up to date to the Ben Hunt signing with the Broncos today. Hence why I haven't uploaded in 2.5 weeks. So if you do appreciate the time taken to do this, a like on the video would massively help the channel. Getting into the simulation, the game was released back in 2017 before the Dolphins were introduced, so it only lets you have 16 teams in the NRL. So Dolphins fans, I'm sorry, last in, first out. I'm going to go through all the biggest games and all the biggest upsets of the season, and we'll end the video by watching the grand final together. With that, let's get straight into it. So what we're going to do is start a new career. And you can see I've put in customized versions of all of the Australian competitions to be updated to 2025. We'll be a coach, and I reckon let's be the Tigers in this one. I reckon that's a nice neutral kind of team to be. Objective, make the finals. Well, we all know that's not happening. And you know what? Manifest. The Tigers are gonna make the finals. Okay, so here we are, and as you can see, updated 2025 team. So we've got the likes of Jerome Luai, Terrell May, Sunia Turuva. What I'm going to do is go to the calendar, and you can see some of the fixtures already, and just simulate through the year. So, time to start simulating. So we're a quarter of the way into the season, and this is how the ladder looks. You've got the Storm sitting up in first place, probably not much surprise there. They're the only team with a 5-1 record. The Broncos hitting back well after last year's disappointment, sitting in second early. Eels coming up from third last year as well is very impressive. And it's the Dragons who wrap up the last spot in the top 8 so far, with the Warriors, Tigers, and Bulldogs just behind. The big surprise here for me is Manly sitting way down in second last. I told you guys, Anthony Seibold is a fraud. In terms of big games in the first quarter of the year, the Broncos beat the Cowboys convincingly in round 2, and the Sharks were able to beat the Dragons in their local derby in round 3, as well as the Roosters continuing their current winning streak against the Rabbitohs in round 4. Biggest upset so far this season would have to be the Sharks losing 14-0 to the Knights at home. I did a couple of practice runs for this video, and the Knights always did consistently well, so we'll see how they go in the rest of the year. Halfway now through the year, and I tell you what, things have changed. The Eels sit right up the top of the ladder with 10 wins from 13 games, level on points with the Bulldogs, who have the same record. If you predicted that top 2 halfway into the season, you should be checked into a medical institution. The usual suspects in the Storm, Panthers, and Broncos sit in the 3 following spots, but the big surprises, I would say, come in the form of the Knights and the Tigers in 6 and 7. I told you, this game likes the Knights. The other big surprises as well, though, I would say, are the Sharks in 10th, who are a team I expect to challenge for the title this year. And the Roosters way down in 12th, having lost 4 in a row. I told you guys, Trent Robinson's a fraud. In terms of big matches, you've got Wayne Bennett's Rabbitohs getting one over his former club, the Broncos, in round 8. And the Eels pulling off what I would call an upset, beating the Panthers 14-0, but they are sitting in first place, so maybe not. Just like in 2023, the Tigers won at home against the underperforming Sharks in round 9. And the following week, the Dragons got revenge on the Sharks for the loss earlier in the season. Lastly, a result that would have had a big impact on the makeup of the top 4 was the Bulldogs getting a 2-point win against the Panthers during the Origin period. Realistically, that is when the Panthers are there for the taking. 3/4 of the way through the season now, and it's the usual suspects back at the top. The Panthers with a record of 14 wins and 4 losses, sitting pretty in first place. Last year's grand final opponents, the Storm, sit just behind them, with the Bulldogs and Broncos making up the rest of the top 4. The Sharks had a bit of a resurgence and are coming back towards the end of this season, while the Eels fell off a little bit, picking up no wins in their last 3 games. The Dragons and Roosters make up the rest of the top 8 with 9-9 records, with the Tigers sitting just outside that elusive finals position. The team currently in prime position for the Spoon are the Titans, having won only 4 of 18 of their games. I told you guys, Des Hasler's a fraud. In terms of fixtures, we've got Wayne Bennett making it 2 from 2 this season with his Rabbitohs against his former club, the Broncos, despite the fact that South sit 10 spots behind Brisbane on the ladder. The Roosters still can't beat top 4 teams, so it's good to see that this simulator is realistic. As usual, they can beat the Rabbitohs though. In round 20 as well, the Raiders continue to prove that they are the bogey side of the Storm, beating the second place side 10 points to 4. And now we get set for the final stretch, the last 6 games of the regular season. Okay, actually, I'm going to just pause it with 2 rounds to go. Because as you can see, the Tigers are sitting in the top 8 with only 2 games left. Well, we all know that's not happening. They've got the Roosters and Cowboys level on points with them just behind. They just beat the Roosters by 1 point last week, and they face the Cowboys now in round 25. Can they break a finals drought that has lasted nearly a decade and a half? Okay, moment of truth. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Couldn't get the job done against the Cowboys at home. And geez, that has put them way down to 11th with 1 game left, so you'd have to think it's going to take a bit of a miracle from here. That for and against they've got though, 20, that's better than the Cowboys, better than the Eels. There could be a chance, but they need a lot to go their way. They have to beat the Warriors though to have any hope. And they do! They do, 7 points to 6. Okay, how does this shape up the ladder? They're in! They're in! The Tigers have done it! Incoming all the comments saying, oh, Leaguie's a Tigers fan. No, I'm just happy to see the drought finally broken. And I doubted it. At the start of this video, I was like, oh, can they finish somewhere other than last? The miracle has happened. With a 12-12 record, the West Tigers will make the finals in 2025. So looking at the rest of the table, Panthers winning the minor premiership, realistically, probably no surprise. But it is certainly a close one, with the Broncos and the Bulldogs only 1 win behind those Panthers. The Storm wrap up the final top 4 position with the Roosters, Warriors, Sharks, and of course Tigers making up the rest of the top 8. Good to see the Warriors as well in particular back there in the finals after a disappointing 2024. Agony for Eels and Cowboys supporters who miss out on the finals due to points difference, and even Dragons and Knights who only missed out by 1 win. The wooden spoon though does go to the Titans. Manly though in 3rd last is quite a shock. I mean look, to be fair, they're only 2 wins outside of the top 8, so it was a very even season. But still, just optically, that is pretty surprising. In terms of top try scorers, these stats are pretty distorted because, as you might have been able to tell, this game does simulate very low scoring games. Nonetheless though, the top try scorer in the league was Dogs fullback Connor Tracy, which is very impressive of him, followed by Jason Saab from the Seagulls, Brian To'o from the Panthers, and Daniel Tupou from the Roosters. In terms of the Dally M Awards, probably no surprise that it does go to Nathan Cleary. Panthers finished 1st and he's the best player of this generation. But Rocco Berry, only 2 points behind. I'll tell you what, absolutely the people's champion. What a season from the centre. But anyway, now it's time for the final series. Finals week 1 started with the Panthers getting a 14-4 win over the Storm, winning in that rematch of the 2024 grand final. The journey for our Tigers unfortunately came to an end at the hands of the Roosters, losing 8 points to 4 in that game. The Sharks managed to convincingly beat the New Zealand Warriors 15 points to 2 to progress to week 2 of the finals. And in the other top 4 game, the Bulldogs managed to beat the Broncos 11 points to 10. Getting into week 2 now was another rematch of last year's final series between the Storm and the Roosters. And once again, it was the Storm who prevailed by 2 points. And in the other match, it was also the top 4 side who got the win, with the Broncos beating the Sharks 6 points to 2. Then into the preliminary finals, we've got the Panthers and the Broncos, of course a rematch of that classic grand final in 2023. And it was the Broncos who got their revenge, heading through to the grand final and ending the Panthers dynasty of 4 in a row. And in the match to decide who will be their opponents, it was the Storm who beat the Bulldogs 14-0, breaking the Belmore Hearts and bringing Melbourne into yet another NRL Grand Final. That means we'll have a Grand Final of the Broncos and the Storm, our two most recent Grand Final losers. So without further ado, let's get straight into the game. Grand Final time, Storm and the Broncos. Adam Reynolds leading his team out, very slow motion there. Harry Grant looking extremely constipated there. You can see him waddling. He is not a comfortable man at the moment. But regardless, here it is, the biggest stage that the NRL has to offer. The Broncos run out. Ben Hunt playing hooker for them, which is where I think he will line up for the Broncos this year once Ezra Mam does return. And now the Storm running out with a very, very similar side to the Grand Final last year, except obviously you've got new signing Stefano Utoikamanu. The anthem plays. This is absolutely the most patriotic song of all time. Reynolds does kick off, and it's Hughes catching it. Looks like he's going to run himself, but he does pass eventually to Kamikamitha. Grant goes short side to Munster, who finds his winger straight away. Flirting with the sideline a bit there is Xavier Coates, but he's wrapped up. Grant finds Howarth, who puts a kick in early. Didn't find Jerome Hughes. Interesting. And Jesse Arthurs goes himself with a bit of stepping, and Brisbane are going to start this set in very good field position early. Hunt finds Reynolds, who I think there was a knock on there, and yes, Melbourne have the ball. Loiero pushing Broncos off left and right. And scratch that, it's going to be Melbourne with the first good attacking opportunity early in this game. Now Grant again, Hughes, and they do spread it out to the right. Warbrick with a step, one-on-one with Walsh, who does wrap him up. Grant finds Katoa and easy getting to the line. Geez, how on earth has he not managed to get that down? All he had to do was dive. Grant for Hughes, now through Howarth with a bit of stepping, but still can't get to the line. I still can't believe Katoa didn't just ground the ball. It was right there for him. Puts the ball up, and it is caught there by Reece Walsh, who gets away. There's no one in front of him. The camera can't even keep up. Hughes is chasing. Will he have the pace? He's got a winger there in support. Walsh doesn't find him, and Hughes does wrap him up. This is end-to-end stuff so far. On the first, Ben Hunt finds Adam Reynolds, now Jordan Ricky, and the Broncos have a chance early on to set up for an attacking set here. This is as entertaining as you could hope a grand final would be. Walsh at dummy half finds Mam across to Piakura. Will he muscle his way through? I think held up again. Yes, that's going to be the ruling. So a couple of back rowers held up early in the game here. Munster goes across to Howarth, who does step through, finds a little line break, but is tackled eventually by Walsh. So Howarth plays it. Loiero now finds Utoikamanu in a gap. There's no one in front of him. Are they going to catch him? Yes, they do. Eventually, Selwyn Cobbo wraps him up meters from the line. 2 tackles left. Grant finds Hughes, who will go himself. Again held up. They just can't find the line here. So half an hour gone in this game. Only 10 to go in the first half, and still no score from either side. Dean Mariner steps through the line, tackled by Pappenhausen eventually as he gets his way up to the 40-meter line. Can Brisbane strike before halftime? Hunt across to Willison, who's straight through a gap. Goes himself. He's got a lot of support past Pappenhausen. Finds an offload for Ben Hunt. They are making a lot of easy meters, both of these sides. A 0-all first half. I tell you what, it was definitely end-to-end. It was incredibly entertaining, but when you look at that scoreboard, probably more one for the purists. The second half now will be kicked off by the Melbourne Storm. Caught there by Adam Reynolds. Hunt to Haas for a second run, and he gets straight through the line there, and an offload to Patrick Carrigan. Very physical from Payne Haas out of his own end. And on the last, a knock on there from Jordan Ricky. He is error prone in real life. It's ended up in the hands of the Storm, who will have a decent attacking opportunity at the end of this set. Broncos got that all wrong. Grant back inside, and absolutely flattened is Josh King there by Payne Haas. Last tackle now, 52 minutes gone. Grant to Munster, does put boot to ball, finds Pappenhausen, and we've got our first try of the game. In behind the line, little grubber kick from Cameron Munster to find Ryan Pappenhausen, the man who has extended with the Melbourne Storm. He was the Clive Churchill medalist last time the Storm won a premiership, and has got the opening try of this grand final. Brisbane absolutely asleep there. So an easy conversion you would think here for Nick Meaney right underneath the posts, and that is a really big try, as we saw obviously no points in that first half, and those 4 points probably about to come 6. Yes, they do. Could be very, very valuable. They find Reece Walsh, who puts a kick in, trying to find winger of Coates, and Coates is straight through. Coates has got Walsh chasing. Now Moser, I believe it is, and Reynolds eventually wrap him up. But awesome kick return there from the Storm winger. They go that direction again though, and it's Kamikamica running down the wing. Jesus, how on earth has that happened? But it's worked. I mean, he made a lot of ground there. Storm tackled on the 20. Only 10 minutes to go in this game. If they score here, surely it wraps up the grand final. Across for Uta Ikamanu finds Howarth with an offload, and it's the Munster, and Munster does get across the line. It's 10 points to 0. 2 scores in it now, when you'd have to think that is probably gonna be the premiership. After providing the try assist for the first try, he benefits off an offload there, and it is Maroon's 5'8" Cameron Munster. So you'd think that will be it. Melbourne will just be able to run down the clock here. Grant to Warbrick, and Warbrick is straight through. Will they catch him? Possibly not. They're not going to. And Jesus, turned out to be quite a convincing Melbourne win in the end, underneath the post. This is going to be 18-0. It's the Kiwi winger, William Warbrick. That might be it, unless he plays it very quickly, but I don't think he will. And that's it. It's called time. The Storm will win the 2025 Grand Final, according to Rugby League Live 4. That is the prediction. It obviously makes sense. They are a top 2 side on paper. They're not losing anybody from this year, and they were very, very good throughout the entirety of the 2024 season. Grant lifts the trophy. The Storm get their first premiership since the 2020 season, where they beat the Panthers. I really hope you enjoyed this style of content. If you did, feel free to leave a like on the video and let me know in the comments below who you think will win the 2025 NRL season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.